everyone. How are you guys doing? Happy Thursday, another Thursday with you guys. Sharla Kornegay coming live with another Forever Friends Academy episode. How are you guys doing? I hope you are, as per usual, either somewhere nice, relaxed, or I guess being productive if you still have things to do. And hopefully you're warm. If you live anywhere near me, I'm up north, we had snow today, which is crazy, at least for me. I mean, it happens oftentimes, but it still is crazy when I experience it. I literally felt like when I walked out my door this morning that I went to a time machine back to December because it was such a winter wonderland outside my door because it legit snowed, in April. So if you're anywhere, hopefully you were traveling safe and got to wherever you needed to go safely. It melted now, but I was just like, I'm so through with snow. Hey, it's another one, Sparks. How are you? How are you? Good to see you. Hope you are having a good night. And thank you for popping in as always. I just got on, so you didn't miss anything at all. I was just telling them it snowed where I live, which was crazy. I literally stepped out this morning, and it was like a winter wonderland, like legit a winter wonderland, like snow all the trees were covered with snow. I was like, this is not spring. It's not. But anyhow, so that's pretty much, you didn't miss anything. That's all I was talking about. Yes, I know you're at work. That's why I always appreciate you popping in because I know you're at work. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming in. But let me introduce myself just in case there's anyone new who's on the podcast with me right now or is going to catch the replay. My name is Sharla Kornegay. I am an author, a recording artist, founder of Interact Coaching, as well as Forever Friends Academy. I do individual one-on-one and coaching for couples, as well as a group coaching for both individuals and couples. And that's under the name Forever Friends Academy, the same name as this podcast. And basically, we just talk about all relationship topics, create a nice, authentic, and safe space for us to talk about it. And what my aim is to help people love to their fullest capacity, whether it's towards themselves, whether it's towards their creator, their family, and of course in marital, intimate relationships. But I want to provide principles, and I want us to dive in and look at things from many different perspectives and angles and try to dive in and see what the truth is, because we can always apply the truth to any relationship dynamic and through all the stages that our relationships most definitely will go through. So that is my aim. So if you have come across me and you are new, welcome. Thank you. I hope you hear something that you like, and I hope you come back again. And if you want to be able to see the full shows, the episode live shows, definitely go over to my YouTube channel, Forever Friends Academy, and subscribe, and of course, you'll be notified when I'm on. All right, so we had a really good topic. Oh my goodness. On our last live, it was so good. I really enjoyed the conversation, had a lot of feedback. I'm still getting a lot of feedback because, I take I kind of cut up some of the snippets and then put it out there on IG and and TikTok. I've been getting a lot of feedback from it. So I really appreciate that. And I'm also getting a lot of feedback from the men since I started, the new series of that question. What freedom does marriage afford a man? So I've been getting a lot of feedback from that, which I will definitely be posting some of the responses that the men have been gracious enough to take the time out to respond. So I appreciate it. So just if you're on, I will be coming back on to kind of continue that series after this podcast. So, but let's get into tonight's podcast. And the question I want to ask you guys tonight is basically, you have a lot of people who talk about, modern dating now, right? Because the culture has changed, times have changed, and because of the new, whether it's technology or things that have now been put into play, that we need to approach our relationships in a different way, almost like modernize them for them to be able to, I guess, be successful in work. So my question to you guys tonight is, I guess it's twofold. Are you a person who prefers like modern? Do you believe, well, first of all, do you believe if there's any such thing as modern, relationships or modern dating? Or are you a person who pretty much believes like, okay, relationships, the traditional way that relationships, you know, are structured, or I guess the way that they have been structured and navigated in the past is really the best way. And we can kind of see what modern relationships, I guess, the experiences and the results that we are recouping from, or having from, I guess, taking on the mindset of modern relationships versus a traditional relationship. So that's my question to you guys. And I said it's twofold because I guess the other part that I'm looking for is there one thing, and you don't have to name just one, but I'm just saying, if there's one thing you can say that either you prefer in a modern relationship versus a traditional relationship, like what do you feel like there's any advantage or anything that is different and new about a modern relationship that is more advantageous for us to have successful relationships? Or are you a person on the other side of the spectrum where it's like, no, modern relationships are, for lack of better terms, a joke, or maybe not a joke, but aren't strong, and they're proving not to be, based on, how many of them are not lasting or failing. So that's my question. I know, I'm sorry, guys. Pretty long, but I guess to surmise it, do you believe in modern relationships? Is there such a thing? And if you do, could you give me one example, of what advantage it gives us in having successful relationships? And if you are a person who's on the other spectrum, I guess give me an example of why modern relationships is not, the system, the structure, etc., the dynamics are not, it's not working for us. And it's probably because there's no such thing. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. And while I'm waiting, because I know you guys have to type, and that takes a little bit of time, especially if you type like me, because I type with the one finger. I moused to myself. And mind you, I took typing in school very briefly. Not even a lot. I mean, you're on the computer all the time. But nonetheless, it didn't stick, y'all. It didn't stick. So anyway, what we talked about on the last podcast is, of course, it was Sunday, so I gave a scenario. And the scenario involved a couple who basically started out kind of like at the end of high school, starting to date each other. And then they've been together for 3 years. They're now approaching, both of them, graduating college. And the plan and the talks or what they've communicated to each other was that, by the time they graduated, they were going to get married. And so then, they started to go to coaching and therapy and things like that, just to make sure that they were ready. And some of the things that came up during the sessions was that the woman in the relationship basically felt like she was not protected by the man. She didn't feel secure that he can protect her. And some of the examples that she brought up in the scenario was that, of course they were younger, but they were teenagers, and there was a time where he was in a conflict with another gentleman. And during the conflict, she knew that the person wouldn't hurt her. One, because the person had kind of like a hidden crush. I guess not hidden if she knows, but she knew that he wasn't going to harm her. And she told her boyfriend to basically run, to go, and he went. And he went all the way home and did not check on her until, he got home, a couple of hours, and then, checked to make sure she was okay. And then there was another situation where she had an accident. She went, down a slide, didn't realize it was deep water. She can't swim. And, he can't swim either. So he didn't jump in to go get her. He went to go get, a lifeguard to come and save her. And I guess because there were other instances, where it was never that somebody was coming to harm her, where he had to defend. It was really that he would just be involved in certain conflicts and certain arguments, and she, was boisterous, and she would tell him to go, and he would actually go. And so she said because of that, when they got older and the incident with the water happened, she was like, isn't there any kind of like gusto or or heart to come out and save me, or try to do something, try to do something. And so she's like, everything else is great, right? Finances, emotional security in that way, like as far as him nurturing her emotions, everything else across the board, she feels comfortable with, but deep down inside, she just can't really forget the fact that he did that, and it's putting her in a place where she doesn't feel like she could be protected. And so I was asking the people who were on with me on Sunday, of course, what would you say? What would you do? Do you think that this is something, because he, in his, I guess, counter argument was that he was young. Of course, now he wants to marry her, and there's nothing that he won't do to protect her, and of course the family that they build, and he and that she should just trust him, that he'll be able to do it. And so I asked the people who were on, is this something that is like fundamental, rudimentary, like this is not something that she can kind of just pass, and act like we can get past this? Or is this something that's like, okay, no, this is something fundamental. I need to, as a woman, to feel protected by you. And because I'm not able to do that, then I'm not really able to fully trust you in this relationship, and that's not going to be a good thing. So anyway, we talked a lot about that, and I had given them a question of if they were like I Am Legend, Will Smith, last person on the earth kind of thing. And they had to now, restart. God is entrusting them to do it. Would you be a person who would choose to have someone, a person with you that has a lot of heart or a lot of wisdom? Tremendous heart or tremendous wisdom. And so I kind of tied all of that together. But in a landslide, I mean, all the people who were on were saying that that is not something that she should just push to the side. And that it is something that is like fundamental when it comes to the nature of a woman needing to feel protected by the relationship, by her, her husband to be. She has to feel protected in that way. So that was a very interesting conversation. And what I thought about after I got off was, I'm wondering, and I don't know how many, I think I got Maya just came in, and Emily, I don't know if they're still with me, but if any of the other women who are here, I was thinking about whether, if that was a real life scenario, and the gentleman in the session said to the woman that, maybe I'm not a person who has a lot of heart like that. Maybe I'm not a person who kind of just wants to, fight things out or things like that. And maybe I'll just pay. I can pay to protect us. I can just pay to protect us. I'm wondering if the women in here would would that be a resolve to that issue if other things were in place and felt like it was in a good place in the relationship. I just thought about that after I got off. I was like, I wonder if that would have been something that could have resolved that. Maybe she would be okay if he said, I'll just pay for someone to protect us. Now, of course, that's around the clock. You know what I mean? But people do, right? People have bodyguards. They have their she said pay to protect how. No, I was thinking about, like, right? Beyonce got Jay-Z, right? But she also has a bodyguard that protects all of them. So I was just thinking if that, in that scenario, if the husband could, he had enough, husband to be could and had enough resources, would that be okay for you? Or is it like innate for a woman to feel like, no, I want you to have the heart to protect me and our family. Like, I need you to be able to have that, even if, you can pay somebody else to protect us, or would that make her still feel like he was cowardice? So Maya said, nah, he needs to be willing to die for me and my family, love me like Christ or leave me be. I know, right? Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah, because I think that's right. I think that's something you want innate as a woman. I think you just want that innate right inside of the person who you are is going to be your husband. That they are, they are the ones that for the family feel like, okay, I'm going to be thinking about risking it all for my family. So yeah, I understand, but I did think about that. She said, because, leaving the girl in a situation he identified as dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why many of them said, like, no, it's definitely, because I asked them, I said, do you think that's a red flag she shouldn't ignore? At least she's one being honest in the session. Or, do you think that she's being more like unreasonable, especially if other things are, I guess, good in the relationship. But trust is an essential thing. It's not only when things happen in a relationship and a breach of trust is, like people usually think of like infidelity or stepping out in some kind of manner, but trust all around. Sometimes people don't feel trust in a relationship because of finances, whether, the person might have separate bank accounts and they don't, they're not open with them. There's many different scenarios in a relationship where mistrust can come up and it's not good. We always want to deal with any areas where there's a breaking point where trust is not the environment of the relationship. And I think that's one of the examples. And I don't think if she doesn't feel like she's secure, that he has a heart enough to be able in dangerous situations or potential, conflicts to, put at the forefront her protection, then yeah, that's going to be a problem. She's not going to be able to trust him wholeheartedly, and especially if you're talking about Christ-like faith-based relationships where, the husband is to lead in the relationship. Oh yeah, no, she's gonna have to trust him, she's gonna have to trust him. So yeah, and I told him I thought it was like I made that situation up, but it also was attached to something I experienced. I experienced that with one of my one of my boyfriends. I did, and I told him to run because I knew that the person wasn't going to hurt me. But I think I said it, but I really, like, no sooner could I get the last N off the word run. I just looked back and he booked. He was zoom. It was like, did he? Like, wow, he really, he really just ran and he no looking back, huh? It's like, let me save my life. She gonna be all right. I mean, which I was. The guy didn't do anything, because I knew that he wasn't going. But God forbid, right? Maybe I was wrong and something would have happened. He would have found out about it on the news later, because he left. And I just remember me being like that girl, thinking like, let me fast forward this in the future. This is not going to work. Like, there's no way I'm going to feel protected by you. There's no way. And we're teenagers at that point. Imagine if something more like, more dangerous. So I thought that was funny. So anyway, that was a great live. For some of the new people that came in, let me post tonight's, because I was just recapping what we talked about the last session. Hey, Justin, for Maya and Jonathan and Justin. I put out a question for you guys about modern relationships. There's so many people who talk about that there's even people who coach, to help people navigate modern relationships. And so my question that I put out to present it to you guys tonight was, one, do you believe that if there is any such thing as modern relationships? And if you do, what do you feel like is an advantage about modern relationships that, I guess, helps a relationship to be more, successful or healthy, in comparison to a traditional type of relationship? And maybe you're on the opposite spectrum and you're like, no, this modern relationship is not really, smokes and mirrors. It's not really something that is really founded on anything, and we can kind of see the fruit of it, of the relationships that are either it's confusing or the relationships are failing. Let me know, what do you feel like in a traditional relationship has more of an advantage than quote unquote a modern one? So that's was the question that I put out for you guys tonight. Justin said, "Oh, I never heard of that word before." Yeah, and if you probably wouldn't. I don't know if you listen to any other like relationship podcasts or anything like that, but there are a lot of people, quote unquote, relationship experts, coaches, that have a whole audience talking about, how to navigate modern relationships. And I think definitely during the pandemic, it most definitely started to, you heard it a lot, right? Because the pandemic, with all the lockdowns and things like that, people could not, communicate with a lot of people. So a lot of people started going online and things like that. So a lot of it comes from that, how the internet plays, on our dating experiences. So yeah, that is a term. That is a term. So that was the question that I popped out to you guys. That was the only thing you missed, Justin? I was only recapping, and you were on our last live. He said, "What did I miss?" You were on our last live, so you heard everything I just recapped. I was just recapping for Maya and Jonathan, some of the other folks that weren't on with me, about what we were talking about in our last live. So you didn't really miss anything. And that was the question that I popped out to everybody for tonight. So I was just recapping to see if I get some answers from you folks, to see what your thoughts are, on it. And I'm going to I know tonight's not Sunday relationship scenario, but I was thinking about a scenario earlier on today, and I was like, I'm going to present it to you guys tonight, even though it's not, the Sunday that we usually do it on, because I'm so curious of what your thoughts are on it. I know you guys, anybody who has been a reoccurring guest or participant or listener, etc., to the podcast, I always talk about and state that, when it comes to authentic and, really experiencing true love, that, you really want to love someone and you want what's the best for them, even if that comes with them not being, either in close proximity to you or within your presence. You want the best for them. And so I had saw a little quick, I think it was a short YouTube short. And I wanted to present this scenario to you guys to see what your thoughts are on it. But I'm going to read a statement first, and then I'm going to throw the scenario out to you guys, and then you can let me know what your thoughts are on this. I have to find it because I don't want to. I'm good for paraphrasing things, guys, so I don't want to do that. So let me get the statement up for you guys. Maybe I should give you guys, now that I'm thinking, I'm going to give you the scenario because I feel like if I say the statement, then it's going to influence the way you answer the scenario. So actually, I'm going to read the statement after I give you the scenario. It just dawned on me as I'm reading it. I'm like, wait, no. All right, so I'm going to give you the scenario first, and then I'm going to state the statement because I don't want it to influence the way you answer. All right, so, hey, Diamond. So the scenario for tonight, and I want to know what your thoughts are. Okay, so you have a couple. Right? You have a couple. They've been seeing each other for a little while. Let's give them, how long have they been? 3 years. 3 years, the longer, the more invested, right? The harder it is sometimes to part ways when it comes to relationship. But nonetheless, right? Let's give them 3 years in that they've invested their time and energy into each other, right? And then one let's make the woman, because I was just trying to figure out whether I was going to make the man or the woman. Let's just say the woman has a great opportunity in regards to her career. Now, this opportunity, though, is going to take her pretty much, let's say they're on the East Coast right now. She's going to be taken all the way to the West Coast, let's say the West Coast. So, of course, that would make their relationship go into a long distance type of state, but the career move in so many different ways, not just the career, of course, elevation of her career, but also it's what she's passionate about, what she's her purpose driven position basically. So it will be able to cultivate her on so many different levels, right? Not just increase in wealth, but also what it would challenge for her mind, maybe also her emotional EQ and learning how to navigate and deal with the responsibilities associated with her position, right? And so the gentleman that she's with, says, no, I really don't really want you to go. I would rather you stay here and us build with each other. And she's like, well, if we were married, if we were married and you were my husband, then I would be more, I would be more leaning towards staying. But because there's no done deal kind of, we've sealed, we've sealed the deal when it comes to each other, or we've decided to commit on a deeper level to each other, then I would be more willing to stay. But because we haven't done that, I don't think this is an opportunity that I should miss, right? And he says to her that opportunities come and go, but having, I guess, a authentic connection and relationships is greater than the opportunity. And she says, well, if you actually love me and you believe that, then we can either take the relationship to the next stage and marriage be the next step, or learn how to weather the distance and weather what we have. So what are you guys' thoughts on this? He feels like, her not wanting to stay and wanting to choose the opportunity, I guess is, let's just say, maybe choosing the opportunity over valuing the opportunity. I'll put it like this: valuing the opportunity more than their relationship. Or do you think she is? Do you think that she's more? I don't want to say right, but do you agree with her reasoning when it comes to the situation where it's like, okay, well, if you were my husband, I would stay. But because our relationship has not elevated to that type of depth of commitment, then I'm not going to not take this opportunity. I'm going to go. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on it? Do you feel like, like her, basically, that no, she should definitely go because the opportunity is going to give her, a lot. It's going to increase her in a lot of ways. And he hasn't necessarily wholeheartedly said that this is, has made her his wife. So she should not miss out on the opportunity just to stay in the relationship and see how it develops further, or I guess nurture the relationships more, because I guess in his belief, it's better that they stay together and build in the area where they are. Or do you think, again, like you agree with her that no, she should go, she should take the opportunity? Or do you think him, where it's like, oh, don't value the opportunity more than you value the relationship? All right, so Emily says, well, if opportunity is more of a priority than the relationship, then she might as well leave. Okay, so the way you answer that, Emily, seems like, okay, she kind of, that you feel like she is valuing the opportunity more than the relationship. And let me know. I don't know if I'm reading that wrong, but just in the way that the statement sounded. Well, if opportunity is more, this is what Emily says. Well, if opportunity is more of a priority than the relationship, then she might as well leave. Okay, so I got one answer so far. Thank you, Emily, for typing that. And I'm guessing just from the way that she answered it. Welcome, Joss Flakes Music. How are you? I'm guessing, Emily, you're leaning more towards, it sounds like the woman, like the way that yes, okay, so she is leaning more towards. So you're like, no, they're not married. The opportunity has presented itself, and it can elevate her in many different ways. So she should go. Okay. All right. So I got one answer so far. Let me see if I get some more answers from you guys. And now I'll read the statement. I'm going to read a statement and I'm going to read a quote because I didn't give you guys a quote at the top of the podcast today. So I want to do that. And I think this quote basically ties in with this scenario and the statement that I'm going to read to you guys. So, okay, so Jonathan says, I'm down to weather that. Okay, so I'm guessing what he's saying, and let me know if I'm right, is you're saying if you were the gentleman in the situation, you would just weather the long distance of the relationship. Which would mean that I guess you'd be leaning more towards her, right, of going and seizing the opportunity. He said, we'll figure things out together. Okay, so I got two so far that's with the girl, the woman in the scenario. Okay, so two people so far. One, Emily says if the opportunity is more of a priority than a relationship, then she might as well leave. And Jonathan says, we'll figure things out together. We can weather the distance. Okay. All right, so let me read the statement to you guys. Here's a statement. Okay. All right. So the statement says, I'm going to read two because I want to see what your thoughts are on both of these. Statement number one says, work opportunities come and go. Finding a person you truly connect with is so much more invaluable, so precious and wonderful. I would never choose anything over a dearly beloved person. Human connection is the most valuable find anyone can receive from up above, which that was the one that was like, I really love how this person articulated that end statement. So I'll read it again. Work opportunities come and go. Finding a person you truly connect with is so much more invaluable, so precious and wonderful. I would never choose anything over a dearly beloved person. Human connection is the most valuable find anyone can receive from up above. So that's that statement. Oh, yeah, and I wanted to read the second one to you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. Do you know, I thought it was very eloquently stated. Let me know if your thoughts on that and do you agree with what that person said. And then the other one I wanted to read to you guys, and I want to know your thoughts are. And I guess this person would probably agree with Jonathan and what Emily has said. They said, absolutely, if you truly love someone, you want the best for them. Sometimes that best for them is not in your presence. Ooh, let me read that again. If you truly love someone, you want the best for them. Sometimes that best for them is not in your presence. Ooh, all right. So I definitely was thinking about that statement because I was thinking like, okay, when is, and maybe that's a question I could throw out to you guys. Like, when can you think of a situation where a person that you love, where it's best for them to not be in your presence? And Jonathan says, I do, but if it's the right person, that connection would be stronger, separated or not. Okay, so I'm what I'm getting from Johnny is something I say all the time here on this podcast is, right, love is beyond space, distance, and time. So there's nothing that, I guess, the life situation that could throw towards that relationship where they wouldn't be able to weather it and grow stronger together. Interesting. Well, let me say the first statement. The first statement I read where that person said that there is, nothing more valuable than, basically finding someone that you're deeply connected to, and how, basically we shouldn't prioritize opportunities over our dearly beloved, people that we dearly beloved. I definitely agree. I thought of a quote this morning as I was out and about today, and the quote that came to my mind, in my first book I wrote, was like a collection of like poems, and I call it like self-help poems because they're laced with a lot of gems of wisdom and truth in it. And there was a poem that I wrote called Art, I Fact, and I kind of separated, like art was the first word, and there was like a dash, and then I, and then fact. And I remember showing it to my daughter's godmother, and it really resonated with her because the way that she read it was, it was a play on words, basically, like an artifact and art, I fact. Basically, she was looking at like, is someone who is, I guess, doubling down on who they are, And so I loved her play on it. But this morning I thought about the quote saying that, the most precious artifact is the legacy of a life well lived here, right? The most precious artifact, in this life is the legacy of a life well lived. And when I think about that, I definitely think about what that person said in that statement. And I would say I haven't heard any answers to the modern relationships versus traditional ones. I think that's one of the biggest things that I have seen that comes up that kind of unfortunately sets our modern relationships up for more failure is where I don't think that value, as that person stated, is there. I think we live in a culture where everything is so quick serve, and microwave, where we're looking for the next best thing. We're looking whether it's opportunity, whether it's experience, whether it's, the next thing to make us become viral or bring wealth or any on so many different levels, where those things that are essential, like what that person said in that statement, that really truly at the end of the day, when we're rocking in our rocking chairs, if God is so gracious to us in our life to be able to get to certain elderly age, is what we're going to think about. Like, what is it that we experience here that afforded for us to live a life well lived? And it's always, anytime I either talk to someone who's already in that stage of life or maybe have read things from people who have already passed and gone, they always say, time with your family, with your friends, the connections that you make, those are the things that are the most rewarding. So, I think in this particular scenario that I gave to you guys, I think it's I love the way Johnny's approach to it. And I think it's interesting that on both ends, right, whether it's the man or the woman, right, because the man could say, okay, well, if I know this is really, and you are the person that I know, I can envision and see myself living this life out forever with you, then that's not a problem, right? We can do whatever's necessary to elevate it to the next level. And I haven't had any answers of maybe someone saying, I'll go with you, right? I'll go with you with her and not without her, to kind of, I guess that would be maximize the situation, because I think of, and you guys know, well, those of you who have been coming to the podcast know I started this new series where I ask men what freedom, does marriage afford men, and it's been very interesting, the feedback that I've received, and there has been some feedback where men have said none, you don't, there's no freedom that it affords you. And even I think one of them said, yeah, he gives up his freedom, so the woman that he better make sure that she's worth it, basically. And I think in my processing of their answers and definitely honoring the honesty that they're expressing and taking the time enough to reply to my statement, I think that I always think about the statement that two is better than one. That two is better than one. And so in this scenario, I know, and I've said it, and I will continue to say it on the podcast and to anyone else that I speak to, because I am someone who has experienced it. So I know how to love people from afar, and I know how to do what Johnny said, where you're weathering the situation in times where it was kind of just implemented in my life. It wasn't something that I took on, whether it was my father passing away when I was young or my mother not being able to raise me. So I had to learn, right, that love was beyond space, distance, and time. And so I had to center myself and connect to God so that I could be connected to those people that I strongly yearned for, to be able to either express love or for them to express love to me. And there is a certain amount of security and trust that you develop in that. And what I love that my husband, having the relationship and the friendship that I have with my husband, is that it's afforded me the opportunity to understand how love, the best way I can put it, is kind of culminates, and how love grows when you have an environment where you cherish each other, right? Meaning that things that you cherish, you want to hold in close proximity to you. I'm sure many of you on here listening to me have learned how to love people from afar and from a distance, because maybe just how they are and how you are doesn't mix, maybe possibly. So you learn how to love that person from afar, or maybe it's a situation like what I went through at a young age where you have to kind of learn that. But there is something that you experience that is really indescribable, and you can't really explain it as much as I try to articulate it in to really process the depth of it. When you have a person by your side, or you cherish each other, where the relationship and each other is the thing that you cherish in this life. And so in this scenario, if he had chose to marry her, or if he had chose to say, well, we'll go together, I think that's where the two is better than one comes into play. And I think in this current modern day society, they don't really think about that, right? Where you have a person who, yes, they have an opportunity and they can go by themselves and maximize it to the best of their ability while they're there. And it's not to say that she can't talk to him, because, of course, right, I'm talking to you guys, and you guys are all in probably different areas and places. That's the beauty of the internet. But trust me, there is nothing like human connection, where you're talking to a person and you are like literally exchanging the energy. And the best, I mean, I guess an example that I can give is if you've ever been in maybe either among creatives, or maybe in a business where they are maybe working on a project, and people are bouncing off ideas, and they're bouncing off, really off of each other's energy. And if you get in a good space with that, and you have people who can harmonize and work together, man, there's nothing like it, right? There's like, that's where the records or the music rather that people do, like maybe Michael Jackson's Thriller and other albums that people feel like are iconic works of art, or in many other areas of life, where that's the combination, right? It's the mixture of those people. And we will never be able to say that the physical proximity of people exchanging energy, especially if those people are guided, right? Guided and are harmonizing in God together. There's nothing like it. And the ideas that come and the inspiration that comes from it, and how you can use that to optimize a situation even further than if you were, doing it by yourself, is affords and I guess gives people greater experiences. That's why they say two is better than one. And so when I think about the scenario that I presented to you guys today, that's what I think about, And I think for me, if I was their coach or their therapist, that's the place I would take them to. That's the place I would kind of lovingly guide them, so that they can question or see what is the best decision to make, to where, right, we can create an environment where that experience that I was just talking about is able to thrive in the best way, So that could be him stepping up to say, okay, well, yeah, we're going to, get married. Maybe he goes with her and get married, But I definitely think something that is a part of traditional relationships that is not so much at the core of modern quote unquote relationships is the last statement. I'll read it again. So that you guys can hear it again, because I just loved how the person articulated it, where they said human connection is the most valuable find anyone can receive from up above. I really do believe that's the truth. And I believe in the second statement, where the person said that if you love someone, you really truly want the best for them. And I think that's what Jonathan, in many of his ways that he answered, he kind of connected with, where it's like, yeah, I want the best for them, and I'll weather through whatever it is situation that we have to kind of get it done. And where they said sometimes what's best for them is to not be in your presence. And I was just thinking, like, in my brain, like, whenever is there a time for that? And I immediately, thought of like motherhood and, fatherhood. That is definitely something that you do when it comes to your children, right? Where you're like nurturing them, and, you're teaching them, and you're guiding them, and you're hoping that they're learning from you and taking, the best parts of you and the best parts of the guidance that you can give them, because then they're going to have to go out in the world, right? And you sometimes, as a mother or a father, could do damage if you want to, kind of, I like the way that Jordan Peterson says it. He calls it the devouring mother, the mother who, basically tries to protect their children, but she kind of almost like makes them not capable, because she is, trying to protect in such a way, and won't let them go out and experience certain things or take certain risks, that it doesn't allow them, to be able to grow. And so I definitely thought about that there definitely are scenarios where, what's best for the person that you love is to be away from your presence, because what they're going to experience or what they're going to learn is going to, help them mature, help them have faith and in learning how to navigate life and how to trust God through the processes that they go through. So I definitely thought about that. But definitely with this scenario, I think that's what I would ask some questions to see where, one, if they're putting what is most valuable first, and how is the best way that we can use, still keep what's valuable first, but how is the best, what can we do, or what action can we take to best optimize, optimize this opportunity that has come our way. Because we don't want to, and I think sometimes this happens when we make our choices and our decisions, we'll forsake what's most essential or valuable for the opportunity, and we don't want to do that. We want to, or at least I want to. I'll put that. I think it's advantageous for people to assess, assess starting from what is primary, of what, okay, let me make sure that I'm valuing and I'm putting what is going to reward me with the most fundamental, essential, greatest experiences that this life can give me. And then from that, okay, now that I have my values in place of what's most important or most essential, now, okay, how do I navigate this decision that I have to make? And which pathway is going to, one, help me to keep the thing that's supposed to be essential, as well as now optimize in the best way the opportunity that we have. And I think that's one of the things, right, where the people traveling together, or the people being together, creates that, where it's, it's not easy to create that, with the distance. Don't get me wrong, there's times where, I'm hoping, or when I'm on with you guys, if I'm in my home and I'm doing the podcast, you can kind of feel, the energy, the peace, the things that are within my household. I'm praying that it ruminates through the things that I say, through the energy that you get from me. But even if that's the case, you come into my home, right? And you being physically in my presence, it's going to be a greater degree. You just think of it forget about me, because I'm just only a mere human. Let's just say it if we were talking about God, right? Where, yes, we can always feel God's love, because there's a droplet of God's Spirit inside of all of us. However, the closer we get, to be in the presence, or in the midst, that's going to be a whole nother thing, right? That's going to be a whole nother thing. And I think so in that sense, when it comes to this situation, I think those are the things that you would want to, the couple would want to think about. It's like, okay, what this decision, whichever way we go, even though we can weather it, doesn't mean we must weather it, right? We want to make the best decision, and the decision we are going to make is going to be what, based on what we hold the most valuable, and can we, put what is most essential, as well as build however we're going to navigate this situation to where, okay, let's hit the target, let's maximize this. And again, two is better than one, those 4 eyes, those 4 ears, and 4 hands and 4 legs, it just in so many ways, right? Is going to be more helpful than the person individually. As I say, collective growth is better than individual growth, because you can do more. You can do more, you can see more, you get greater understanding. That's one of the things that I thought about when I was presenting the question to the men about what freedom does marriage afford a man. I think that's one of the things, and I don't think that's just men. I think it's, I guess I'm just answering because I'm not a man. I can just answer from the point and perspective of a woman, but also extend it out to just a fundamental principle that if you partner up with someone who is the right person, is a person that is a person that aligns with your vision and aligns with your purpose, you're going to do more together than you would individually. That's the whole point of the relationship. And when you get extra help, it's supposed to give you more freedom to be able to focus and do, other things, with a clear conscience, with more clarity, because you have that support there. And make no mistake, that is freedom. Whether it's freeing up a area that maybe you were tied up in, or freeing up of maybe things that, before that person came into your life, there might have been maybe areas and vices that you struggled with, that maybe you couldn't even see for yourself, and that now when this other person comes into your life and they become a mirror, then you get the freedom of not being enslaved to those vices that wished to hold you back, right? So of course that's warranting it's with the right person, and you choose, guided by God, in choosing who your wife is. But all of that gives you freedom. So that is the scenario that I have for you guys tonight. Thank you guys for your responses. I think any of those responses, definitely I can see how, where your thoughts were as you were, presenting them to me. And, definitely understood and connected with, Jonathan's answer, where it's like, okay, whatever it is, we're going to weather through it, We are going to weather through it. I think it reminds me of our last podcast, where it's like a person with heart, right? They are going to, take whatever tools and things that God gave them, just like David, with the example I gave with fighting Goliath and his big old giant. All he has is, what's equivalent to like a slingshot and a stone, but he's going to make it happen because the heart gives you vision to use the tools that God gives you in so many different ways, right? It's like you put one thing in front of somebody who does not have the courage or trust, or maybe has not placed their heart in God's hands, and they can only really fathom only one way to utilize it. But then you give it to someone else, like a David who has a heart in that way, and it's like he's seeing so many things. And I loved a gentleman's answer to that question, because he came on last week and he told me that the freedom that marital freedom gives him, clarity of vision and direction. And I totally, I asked him, could he kind of expound upon it? And I get it now. It's that, where it's like that union, gives him the freedom to be able to see clearly, because he put in his answer that his union with his wife helped to kind of make him perceive the process, or I guess the processing of his decision making differently, because of course he is thinking about her, and he also has a daughter, and so when he's making decisions, of course they're on his heart constantly, so it affords him to look at things differently, and perceive things differently, and be able to move, in certain ways. But I think also, as I was just bringing up, when you have that, like what David has, you the tools that God gives you, you can use them and see them in different ways, because of that. Whereas maybe somebody else, when they don't have the courage or the trust, and their heart isn't placed in God's hands, then they're blinded to only necessarily see it in one angle, in one way. And I definitely think that's at the heart what our relationships do. They provide for us, because you have two people who are coming together, who are clearly different. So the understanding that can provide in the relationship, to be able to learn from each other is wonderful. So that is what I wanted to present to you guys tonight. Thank you for all of you guys who popped in tonight to listen to my scenario. I know it wasn't Sunday, but I was just like, I saw these comments, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna throw that out to them and see what they think about it, and kind of tie it in with the questions that I presented to you guys in the beginning, and the statements that I presented. And I'm gonna leave you guys with this quote, because I said I wanted to provide you guys with a quote tonight, which I usually put at the top of the podcast, but it went a different direction tonight. But I think this is a perfect quote to leave with you all tonight. And this quote is by Mitch Albom. I hope I pronounced that right. Mitch Albom. So the quote is, "Sacrifice is a part of life. It's supposed to be. It's not something to regret. It's something to aspire to." Let me say that again. I love this quote. It says, "Sacrifice is a part of life. It's supposed to be. It's not something to regret. It's something to aspire to." So hopefully that leaves you guys on a good note. And I say a good note because we kind of started off the podcast with the difference between modern relationships versus traditional relationships. And I think definitely something, if I could swing back around when it comes to how we cultivate our relationships, or how we develop, our friendships, and how we view marriage, especially in this current modern day society, is have more relationships that are sacrificial, lead driven, more than compromise. I think our divorce rates are a reflection of relationships that have a compromising environment rather than sacrificial ones. And I love the way that this quote put it, because when you make a sacrifice, it's not something that you regret. It's something that you should actually aspire to. So if we take it back to the scenario that I presented to you guys, if, they're talking and they're communicating and they're in front of whoever, their coach, their therapist, and that therapist, says to them, how could we, start to develop a relationship where sacrifice is at the forefront rather than compromise, and I always say in my podcast that sacrifice isn't, and I always say that people, sometimes we get this, the authentic nature of a sacrifice sometimes is not understood because we've heard so many people talk about the repercussions of their bad choices, and then they call those actions and the things that they had to, or processes that they had to go through, as sacrifices. A sacrifice is something that you voluntarily lay down. It's not, how can I say it? It's not just a repercussion of a poor choice or decision. Sometimes we go through processes in life and we're just going through what's necessary for us to either learn the lesson that we didn't learn. And sometimes there is suffering that we go through with that. But then there are sacrifice, like Christ's sacrifice, where he laid down his life and he had the power to not, but he did anyway for the greater good. So that's what I mean by sacrifice in relationships. So if they had a coach or therapist that asked them, like, okay, that's the opportunity, we know what the scenario and the situation is, now let's see, if we are looking at navigating this scenario and this situation from sacrifice being at the forefront or compromise, and that would mean, okay, this is something, as far as the quote that I just read, is something that you make a decision, not that you're going to regret, but something that we should aspire to. We should aspire and look for moments and opportunities in our life, in our relationships, where sacrifice is something that we're willing to do, because we know it's something that we have the power to choose to do, because we have the capacity and the ability to do it, and the endorsement, of course, from God to be able to do it, so that it provides a greater experience or a greater good for all people involved, including ourselves, even if it doesn't feel so great in the moment. So I think sometimes if we have situations that come up like the scenario that I gave, where, especially in this current day culture, where, as I said before, where we're seeking the next quick fix or the next quick, experience, we're not really necessarily, right, looking for the sacrifice in it. We're not necessarily aspiring to make the sacrifice. We're just looking from it, or at it, from an ambitious perspective. And oftentimes it's a self-centered, ambitious perspective, not necessarily for the collective. So that's a place that they can go, to where, okay, what is the best decision that we can make, where, one, we are upholding what is essential and is fundamental, and when we both look within ourselves, what is the sacrifice that we can voluntarily lay down and present, to be able to, one, grow our relationship in the best way, and two, is going to, if we do that to grow our relationship in the best way, it is going to most definitely open up space for us to take the best action to optimize this opportunity, if we are to take it. But we want to take it in the best way, so that we're not weakening our relationship, but we are strengthening it, and we are also, right, seizing the opportunity and utilizing it in the best fashion possible. So I wanted to leave that with you guys, because it's a quote that I really loved, and I try to think about from time to time, so that I can make sure I put myself, back in the proper positioning, to prayerfully live a legacy, a precious artifact of a legacy of a life well lived here, that most definitely will be centered around the people's lives that I impact and the connections that I make, and of course the experiences and the wealth in all areas of life that will render me, because I seek the kingdom of God first. I seek, what first things first, what was primary, and didn't place my value on my faith in other areas that weren't as essential and important. So, all right, so I'm going to get off. I'm going to, I guess, leave probably a minute or two to see if you guys have any other relationship questions outside of what I presented tonight. I'm not going to take too long because I have started coming back on with you guys for those who want to join my live, because when I do it here for Instagram, I'm not able to put you on. And I do love the connectivity and the connection that I get speaking to you guys, instead of you just typing to me. So I'm going to be coming back on. So I'm not going to leave too much time for that, but I will leave, a moment just in case there is a question that anyone has. Doesn't have to deal with what I presented today. It could be something that you're just curious about, wondering, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability right now. If I can't, do it to the best of my ability, then I will return after I've reflected on it to answer it for you. All right, so while I'm waiting, of course, thank you for all of you who popped in with me. Jonathan, Emily, Joss Flakes, Diamond, It's Another One, Spark, Maya, Alexis, all of you guys who popped in with me. I'm sorry if I'm missing any names. I apologize if I did miss your name, but thank you guys for taking a moment. I always say it, you can be anywhere, but you're here with me. So I appreciate you. Michael, Michelle, hello. Yeah, I missed some people. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for popping in. And again, I come on Thursday evenings, Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to drop by my channel on YouTube, Forever Friends Academy. That's where all the full live episodes are. You can catch all the live episodes there. So feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You'll get the notification when I'm on and be able to watch the full live. So I appreciate all you guys. Oh my goodness, Emanuela, how are you? Lovely, beautiful. Thank you for popping in. I'm getting off now because I've been off for a while from my podcast, but I am going to be hopping back on for those to give people an opportunity to actually join one-on-one live with me. So if you're still up, please do that. And chasing dollars, oh no, everybody's coming. More people are coming while I'm leaving. I will be back on because I have started a series that asks the question, what freedom does marriage afford a man? So I will be back on and do a little recap of what we talked right now on the podcast, but I am going to be coming back on shortly for the after show. So feel free, when you get the notification that I'm live, come back on. But I appreciate you guys stopping back in. Hopefully, maybe you can catch me back when I come back on, on Sunday. I'll be back on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I appreciate you guys. And of course, as always, until next time, I always say, always remember to live, to love freely. All right. Bye, guys.